Gene Whipp. When I think of this guy, I think of a whirling dervish. Absolutely a 100%er. He would give you his total devotion, and he would be responsible in every single job he undertook. Undertook everything with a huge amount of energy. I envied him for that. We met in boat racing. He had raced the outboards. He got into inboard hydroplanes very successfully, I might add, and then moved up to unlimited hydroplanes for one race. He won the President's Cup up in Washington, D.C. in one of the squirreliest boats on the circuit called the Miss Lincoln Thrift. Now, I have to tell you something, that he won once, got the trophy, and then quit it. That was his one ride in an unlimited hydroplane. He went on to promote races in El Dorado, Kansas. He promoted races in Sarasota, Florida. As you know, he was all over the place, and he did a phenomenal job. But I think one thing I take away from Gene Whipp is after he passed, he wasn't even there for it. I went down to be recalling some memories at his funeral, and I have to remember at that service that they were supposed to have it inside the Van Wezel or Robards, I think it was Van Wezel, and they had construction going on, so they had a big circus tent, and they decided to have it in the circus tent. And I said to the crowd there, I thought that was so appropriate. His life was a circus. He was the clown. And you know what they say about the clowns? They're the ones that know everything, and they can do everything, and that's Gene Whipp. He was a do-all, everything guy. Gene Whipp, special guy, proud to call him a friend.
It's hard to believe that Gene Whipp was not a native Sarasotan. After all, how could somebody who wasn't born and raised here possibly have the passion to do so much for the community? He not only operated what may have been the most successful marina and boat dealership on the Suncoast, but he also was a founder of the Suncoast Offshore Boat Races. For 27 years, the world champions of powerboat racing come to our shores to compete, thanks to the efforts of Gene Whipp and others. As a result of the millions of dollars spent here during that 4th of July week and the thousands of people who are attracted to Sarasota year after year, the disadvantaged children of our area benefit with opportunities they never would have had without Gene Whipp. Eugene McCall Whipp was born in 1942 near Dayton, Ohio. His father was a milkman, his mother was a bank teller. Gene grew up in the Dayton area, instilled with Midwestern values and the belief that hard work was its own reward. Gene was working as a delivery boy at a music store in Dayton when things started happening for him as a result of that hard work. He soon became a top salesman, but he wanted more. His next-door neighbor remembers.
When we moved to Dayton, he was running a music store.
Carlin Audio, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, no, that was Howard Music.
Oh, okay.
Was the store that he was managing, and he wanted to buy into it, and Jerry Howard wouldn't sell him any. And he bought then Carlin Audio, which is a little old rundown TV antenna stereo store on the west side of Dayton, just doing nothing. And he bought it, and within 2 years, he had 4 stores.
Turned it into silk.
Doing great. And then that's in '80, then he bought the marina down here. But he just classic entrepreneur. He really knew how to make things happen.
As to just how Gene Whipp became connected to Florida, well, it was a pretty girl who provided the connection. Her name was Chris.
I was living in St. Petersburg with my mom and dad, and he was 19 years old at the time and a boat racer in Ohio. Came down to St. Petersburg with a bunch of his friends to race, and he had just had knee surgery, so in a cramped car with all those guys was not his ideal way to travel. But he won the race that he was in. He says, hey, I got $100, the heck with you guys, I'm gonna fly home. So he couldn't get this was a Sunday, he couldn't get a flight out till the next day. So he called his aunt and uncle who happened to live right next door to me. And they said, well, we gotta get up early in the morning, go to work. We gotta find a way to entertain you. Let's go see Chrissy next door and see if she can entertain him.
Apparently, young Gene Whipp was well entertained. So much so that he started making excuses not to go home to Ohio.
So he called his mom and said, tell them we're having a storm down here and the planes can't get out. So he called and found out that she could get away with that. The next day he wanted to stay even longer. He said, call and say that, call my boss, tell them that they had to tear the engine down on the boat. We were delayed again. Well, he tried it the third time, and she says, you call and make up your own lies.
When he finally did go back home, he told his mom he had met the girl of his dreams and that he was certain he was going to marry her.
When I got my high school graduation, my folks asked me what I wanted for a graduation present. I said, 2 weeks before I start college, to go and visit with Gene and his family. I can stay with his grandparents. And long story short, I was there one day and we eloped.
Over the years, Gene and his father-in-law became interested in boats, building them, modifying them, testing them.
They would build them up there in the winter, and they'd need to be tested before time to race that season, and the lakes were frozen over up there. So his answer was, well, let's move to Florida and get a marina down there and build boats, and that'll answer that. So that's how we ended up in Sarasota.
And it was a most fortunate move. In Sarasota, Gene and Chris and their daughters Wendy and Dina really got into boats in a big way. Gulf Wind Marina was purchased right next door to the old Salty Dog, which was the scene of many a great business lunch over deep-fried hot dogs and beer. Gene became well known for his business sense. He was determined to hire the most qualified people who could help him out at the marina. Among them were Harry, Bill, and Andre.
And he'd say to me, Andre, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. He says, but my fortunate ability to hire good people to work for me is where my strength is. Yeah. And he did. He did. He hired the best he could get from his technicians, his mechanics, his managers, his sales guys. And the one thing that I remember, the 3 rules of success for him were take care of the customer. Number 2 was take care of the customer. Number 3 was take care of the customer. And that's really what he believed. And he loved Midwesterners because he felt that the work ethic, we're all Midwesterners. The work ethic of Midwestern people was different than other people.
Probably truly was the most influential person in my life.
Absolutely.
To this day,
Without a
there's
doubt.
still certain things one-liners that come up in my day-to-day business. Treat people the way you want to be treated yourself. Yeah. You know, if I wasn't here and you had to make a decision, what would Gene do? You know, things like that. It just really has stuck with me and been a big part.
What was his famous, shortest one-liner that I know you've heard it a million times because I heard it a million times? If you went to him with a question or a problem,
I'm not any smarter than you are. I've just been doing
that
this
was
longer.
a good one. Handle it. Just handle it.
Just get it handled.
Yeah, don't make me come help you. Just deal with it.
But he truly had, I think, a charismatic air about him. He was just so good with people. He had the ability to motivate you in his own little way, and that was just a special thing.
Almost from the beginning of his years in Sarasota, Gene Whipp had boat racing in his blood, and he wanted to share that enthusiasm with everybody. He enjoyed boating in Ohio, but there just wasn't enough water. That's when he came up with an idea: bring boat racing to the Gulf of Mexico. The Suncoast offshore boat races were born in Gene's mind as a way to raise money for charity, as well as a way to have fun and put Sarasota on the racing map. But a sponsor was needed. A lot of money and commitment was needed, not just from Gene, but from others. Paul Thorpe remembers.
So we met one night, one afternoon for lunch at Merlin's on 1st Street. And we were kicking around, and he was saying, come on, guys, somebody find something. I want to stay here. I don't want to leave Sarasota. St. Pete's making some offers, and Mom would like to stay here. And I said, well, the only group I could think of, let's try and see if the Shriners will do it with the foundation. And I'll set up a meeting with Hollis Tucker and Foxworthy and Bucky Walters and some of those guys and see if they'll take on their thoughts and help be the sponsor for the race.
Gene was someone that you'd meet and you would want to rally around. You would want to help Gene. He empowered people to do their best, and he empowered people to take that next step. I know a lot of racers, that were thinking about getting into racing at the time, and Gene was the catalyst. You wanted to support Gene and you wanted to get involved with the festival. So that's how it started for me.
A term beside his name in the dictionary would be visionary. You know, and it's unique to be able to be a visionary and see something down there that has nothing, it's just a dream, and then to have the leadership and infectious desire to get it done, that it becomes, for lack of a better term, a living legacy that continues to survive, and everybody who touches the program gets hooked on it because it's still, Gene's still got the momentum behind this thing.
There's no doubt that Gene Whipp knew that his most important contribution to the world was not his victory in the President's Cup boat race on the Potomac. It was not his success as an auto racer, which almost got him killed at Sebring, and it was not his success at building a business legacy in Ohio as well as in Florida. No, Gene knew that his most important contribution to the world was the result of all of those things. It was his contribution to the children of the Suncoast, the disadvantaged, the disabled, making life a little better for all of them.
He certainly left a legacy that'll never be forgotten and will be in the hearts of many. And those that didn't have the opportunity to meet him, I think through this festival, know Gene in a way and understand all the efforts that he put into it.
You know, anytime his name comes up, I smile.
Yeah.
And anybody who knew Gene, when you mention his name, you smile. And that's special. And I think that, you know, for somebody who gave tirelessly of his time and effort and talents and money 24/7 to do anything for somebody else without expecting anything in return, you know, that's a remarkable trait. There are too many self-serving and selfish folks in the world these days that are out for themselves, and, you know, Gene gave it all to everybody else.
In the end, Gene Whipp was more concerned about others than he was for himself. By the time he acknowledged that he was ill, it was too late. The ancient enemy of all men, cancer, caught up with Gene at the age of 57.
And his biggest fault, as far as I'm concerned, was his inability to recognize and do what he should have been doing for himself, and he let him get caught into this thing by letting the friends sign off on physicals and stuff and things that we all know that should have been done. And I'm still a little mad that he died at 57 because, you know, and I've had like 4 colonoscopies since then, and they don't really, it's not that bad. And damn it, Gene, if you'd have just done it instead of, but he was real big on, I got a buddy that'll sign off, I got my flight thing in her hand.
But he was also old school, where he didn't really like the doctors. He didn't want to be there. He didn't, if he felt okay, he couldn't see any reason to talk himself into doing it.
No, I miss Gene. I think my life would have been different had he still been here. I know it would have been, and I really miss him because I think it might have been even more positive. It's been okay. Everything's good. You know, still married, still have a job and all that, but I really miss Gene because I don't know where it could have gone. I think a lot more could have gone.
Well, out of all the people that I've met in my lifetime, he is probably the person that I still remember and talk about the most.
Gene made quite an impact on this community, and not only just for the boat racing, he made a lot of good friends, and he was involved with his business and his family, well-rounded. But as far as the community itself, I think that there's a thing going on here now that might not have happened along, that has been very, very beneficial to the community, and we all appreciate very much that he's recognized for it.
And Gene would be so good about walking into a room, and you could have 30 different opinions on how 30 different things should be run, and Gene somehow could make everyone come together for the good of the sport. And there were never hard feelings, and he had a gift for that.
What he did was helped us all take some Kodak moments that we have here. And there's a picture out there that we can show you, and each of us have a different Kodak moment, and Gene helped us provide them. You can't buy them, you can't reproduce them. They're up in here.
It's kind of hard for me to believe. Sometimes I go back over and think, gee, did all this really happen?
I think Gene left footsteps in the sand that will not be washed away for a long time.
Ladies and gentlemen, for his contributions to the community of Sarasota, the 2011 Argus Lifetime Achievement Award goes to Eugene McCall Whipp.